Hey everyone, welcome to Founders 365 with me, Steven Haggerty. Today I'm joined by the co-founder of Social Playground UK, Zora Feraji. How are you today, Zora?
Good, thank you. How are you, Stephen?
I'm very well. Thank you so much for coming on the show. And I guess the first question, as always, just to get people an understanding of what you guys do, what is Social Playground?
So, Social Playground is basically how we like to describe it is a next generation creative communications agency and content studio. But, it's basically social media. What we do is social media and influencer marketing. That's the basis of what we do. We're based in London, and we're basically, working with all the challenger brands to bring them up to the level of the big players on all
Amazing.
Instagram, Facebook,
All the
social
good stuff.
platforms,
All the good
all the
stuff.
good stuff.
Exactly. For you, you started last year, I think it was, wasn't it? Early or
Yes,
late?
yes.
What month?
I
Who
would
knows
say
now?
August, but yeah, it's been a journey. Yeah.
Yeah, so last year started. How has the first year of business been then? And especially because we've been thrown a little bit of a spanner
Oh my
in the
gosh.
world of 2020.
So we started, we had a business plan, and then March COVID hit, and I was like, what?
Just throw the
But
business plan out the window
yeah,
straight
just
away.
whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's been a tough one, but we've been very fortunate that we did acquire some new clients even throughout the pandemic.
Brilliant.
I think the pandemic showed people that online, social media, digital is the way forward when, especially when your venues are like not open.
Yeah.
Um, but it's been tough and a learning curve as well. Obviously, the general marketing rules not necessarily apply in a situation like this, so
Mm.
we had to redo some strategies.
For you, this is your first business, correct?
Correct.
So, like you said, a huge learning curve. But if we just go back before launching, what was it that was going on in your world that you thought, you know what, I really want to co-found and launch, obviously, Social Playground?
Well, so my background was in advertising. I was working for a couple of big advertising agencies before I started Social Playground. And I guess my main feeling when I was working at those agencies were, very male dominated industry, yeah.
Hmm.
So, and very like the boomer generation.
Sure.
So kind of like the tactics, I don't know if you know the show Mad Men, but it's so true. So true. So it was a bit of a shock, especially like a young girl from our school getting in there. And you would think that it evolved, but it hasn't.
Mm.
And there were not much room at the table for very creative ideas or just to think super outside of the box. The budgets were huge, but at the same time the ideas were sometimes just like, really, this is what we're going with.
I
So we
guess people
decided,
get a bit lazy.
lazy, yes, and also sometimes not naming names, but reputations get in the head of some
Hmm.
people, just
Got you.
because you're a big creative
So, like, oh, you're a big
director.
name. You're going to do a great
Exactly.
job.
Exactly. And same with the agencies, like some of the smaller players, especially
Mm.
in London, would do a way better job than some of the big ones. But
Yeah.
obviously, their reputation is what gets them those jobs. So we decided to create our own table, really, and bring real diversity and just like really creative ideas to the forefront because, the whole performative thing that's going on, especially, now with Black Lives Matter, like you gotta change and
Hmm.
make those decisions, and those start from advertising, I believe, how we portray the world we like to live in.
Yeah.
And with all campaigns, it's really about mirroring what's around us and making sure everyone's voices are being heard and it's easily accessible for everyone.
Yeah, I don't think people realize just how much influence the smallest advert can have on you or the people
It's
around you.
crazy,
Uh,
especially it's crazy. It's crazy.
and I guess that's where that power of having that diversity, having those different influences, bringing those different people on board gives you the edge.
Exactly. And it's at the same time unfortunate, because you would think that just because we represent a lot of POC talent in the UK, it wouldn't give us the edge. It would be normal. And yet people come to us because they say, look, to put it bluntly, we haven't worked with Black influencers in the past couple of years. And it's like, cool. And are we the only agency who do that? Yeah. And I'm not saying we are, but it's not as common as we would like to see it.
What were the challenges for you then setting up? Because obviously you sounded like you were quite frustrated in sort of the big corporate world, let's call it, and making that leap from obviously that secure job as well, the fact that it is a big name, and I'm sure you could probably see people in that business that were doing quite well and perhaps you looked up to in some sort of way. But how was the challenge for you to go, you know what, I'm going to draw a line under that. I respect them because obviously they're great at what they do in some aspects, but you obviously wanted to create this change and this difference in culture as well.
Well, basically, first, I just decided to go to a smaller agency that was headed by someone who is a person of color. And he was an amazing mentor. And then I thought, okay, I'm more close to social media and the influencer marketing sphere, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. The leap was scary, but I was comfortable because I have a really, really good partner. So that helped. And then it just went from there.
Let's talk about that support network then around you. How important is it for you to have those mentors, have that sort of soundboard around you to make sure that you're doing the right thing?
I think it's great to have those. And I also think it's very important to have a team where it's kind of like the hierarchy is a bit different. It's more like, collaborative effort. Like, I don't mind if like a junior pitches an idea, go ahead. I would like you to do that because that's why I hired you. I want to hear your voice, and also do call me out. That's why we have like true representation, because my experiences could have been different from yours. So yes, let's have a discussion. And when it comes to mentors, I had, as I said, I had a really, really good mentor. But, in terms of challenges, it's hard being a woman in this industry. And that's not something that, many people, I think, talk about. But, one thing that I would suggest is, get a good therapist, because it does help.
If you learn anything from this podcast, it's get a good therapist.
Exactly.
Hey, it works, right? It's so important to have that support network.
It's so important. And, everyone deals with rejections differently. And in this industry, there's a lot of them. You do a lot of pitches and, there are a lot of no's, or like there are a lot of no budget for this. So you have to rethink. And sometimes I would take it personally. So it's always good to like just center and say, actually, this is not about me.
Exactly. Let's touch upon the fairly large topic then of women in business, because I've been interviewing, you're my 164th founder that I've interviewed, and
good number.
Great number. And I think we reach out to a whole mix of founders, and unfortunately it does seem to be that the majority of them are sort of your typical male, have gone sort of through a typical story. I would love to have more diverse founders on, but there still seems to be a little bit of a, I don't know, blockage or something going on where they're not standing up, they're not speaking out, they don't want to come out on podcasts or whatever that sort of topic is. Why do you think that, and not just in business, but the world in itself, really, that it's still so not sort of a level playing field, let's put it that way? Told you, big question.
Yeah, my personal experience was that going into, founding Social Playground with a male helped immensely. And you wouldn't believe, but there are still business meetings like where we meet a new client and that person would only address him in the room, and our titles are the same. Yeah. And I was frustrated, and I went straight to my mentor, and I was like, look, you have similar experiences because you are sometimes the only Black person in a room. Like, what? Like, And he was like, you know what, you just got to take it on the chin and power through it, because it's not going to be the first time, it's not going to be the last time. I think it's just generally about respect that some males don't necessarily give when it comes to a female, or like especially when you're in like a power position.
Hmm.
I think it's cultural, and I do hope to see more
Such an
female
old school
founders.
mentality, isn't it?
Such an old school mentality. And yeah, I mean, I wish there were more female founders. I do think there are some. It's also the whole, like women go and instead of starting businesses, they usually start families.
Hmm.
I think, or in our generation, like millennials, is starting to be different, and it's not
Yeah.
either family or business. It could be both. But before, I think, you're going into a playing field where it's not
Yeah.
even at all.
I
So
think
it's challenging.
anyone that has started a company in the last, let's say, 3 years is automatically driving a different culture. And
Yeah.
especially if we mix that with being a millennial, or being under a certain age where they just look at certain things differently. I know that the conversations that I've had with perhaps the younger founders versus sort of the older founders have been extremely different.
Yeah.
Which is really interesting for me, because actually everyone's kind of going after the same thing. Like everyone kind of has the same goal, the same
Yeah.
aspirations in terms of being a founder. They want the freedom, they want to spend time with their family, or all these different things. But it just amazes me, like you said, in terms of going into a meeting and sort of being ignored, that it still happens on a day-to-day basis. And it's only because of companies like yours and other companies that are being pushed into the limelight now that I think that change is going to be a really positive change.
Well, I do hope so. But
You've not got a
again,
choice now, you've said it.
yeah. Now I just said it. We're just coming for you guys.
Yeah, exactly.
But no, I think that, but also because, I think founders are getting younger and younger. That's
Hmm.
also an added issue that I sometimes have, is that people do underestimate you based on how young you
For
are.
sure, 100%.
And, we had a couple bad experiences where people do take advantage of you because they think, you don't really have that much experience. It's not
Hmm.
like you're, in your 50s, 60s, and it's your 10th business or some whatever. So yeah, it's,
I think
hopefully it's just the
the age
power.
factor is a funny one though, because I don't think business owners are getting younger per se. I think the types of industries that businesses are being created are more tailored to the younger generation. For example, social
Yeah.
media. If you give, even if I, if you give TikTok to a 50-year-old and say, hey, what does this do? They may not know. Okay. And this is a massive generalization that I'm probably going to get some
Yeah.
slack for, but it's okay. But if you give TikTok to like a 15-year-old, they're going to know exactly how to use it, and they're going to be more educated and more proficient in it than the older generation. I think this is why, one of my questions to you was going to be, why do you think so many sort of marketing companies and social media companies are being formed, and put the age side on it? They aren't typically being formed by the younger generation now.
That's such a good question. And I did want to mention that, you know what? I think something as well that I felt so comfortable starting Social Playground was because I did grow up on Instagram and
Yeah.
Facebook. I remember when Facebook came out, and I was, I think, in high school, and I was like, this is going to be so much fun.
Yeah.
And look where
I
it is
remember my
now.
brother sending me the link being like, oh, have you heard of Facebook?
Yeah,
Here,
yeah. I think I was in
join
like,
here.
yeah, I think I was in summer camp, and like the older guys were like, yeah, we're gonna like, start accounts. And I was like, yeah, let's get on this. And like when you've been on Instagram for so long, seeing how the algorithm is changing, I think you're just way more comfortable when a new platform like TikTok comes around, and you'll be like, yeah, I'll get the hang of it in like,
Hmm.
a day or two.
Yeah.
Or like creators who migrate from platform to platform will just bring their audiences with them.
I
And
think
I
the
think, yeah, you're
one of
absolutely
the
right.
one of the benefits as well of having a younger founder, and to be honest, I'm not even liking the word younger, to be honest, because for me age is really irrelevant, but it does come into it, like you said, on some form or level, whether it's consciously or subconsciously. But when you have a younger founder, especially in the social media marketing world, or marketing world in general, they also understand the impact that social media has on people.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, one of the big influencers, Sugg, this weekend did the blackout, no social media Saturday, was it, or Sunday?
Yeah, yeah,
And they had a huge billboard in the middle of London, Piccadilly Circus, about it. And that kind of just shows you actually how much the younger generation are putting on mental health in terms of social media, the positives and the negatives. And I think that does come because, like you said, we've seen it evolve, we've seen it change, we've seen it gone from a
yeah,
place where you post your pictures of your mates in the pub to it's got to be a perfectly edited, perfectly shot,
yeah,
perfectly lit, otherwise it doesn't work.
exactly.
Where do you see the future? Because it's always changing, it's always evolving.
Yeah.
Where do you see it going in terms of social media as a whole, but also businesses like yours evolving within that?
So that's a really good question. I think social media is definitely here to stay, especially because of the younger audiences and because of Instagram's and Facebook's ability to evolve with the times and also listen to feedback. Like I remember when the whole filters were a big deal about, the plastic surgery stuff on your
Mm-hmm.
face, and they banned it immediately. It's like, we're not going to do that to, like, the, I don't know, 14-year-olds who are on the platform. And that feedback, I think when you have the ability to impact how a platform is doing, is great. I think in terms of where it's going to go, it's probably going to see more independent platforms like TikTok
Mm-hmm.
come around, because people do innovate constantly. And then in terms of social media agencies, I think there will be more platform specific agencies
Okay.
who specialize in knowing TikTok, for instance, or knowing how to only do Instagram. I think Facebook's already seeing to be a secondary platform when it comes to social media presence. For some brands, they don't even want it included in their packages.
Really? Wow.
They don't really see it as a way to connect with the younger audiences, and they do associate spending power with the younger audiences,
Mm-hmm.
especially right now. So I think brands will go after the newer platforms that pop up every day.
Yeah, totally agree. And for you as a founder of one of those social media agencies, what is the hardest part of your job when you're speaking to new clients? Do you have to do much education? Where do they stand when they first come to you?
It's honestly different with every client. Depends on what their background is. Usually not much education, but when it comes to social media, there are some myths where, like, they think it's easy or anyone can do it, or big numbers of followers include a ton of sales immediately.
Mm-hmm.
And I think those are the things that you need to educate about. It's not necessarily that it's important. I think by now everyone knows it's important to be on a social platform. I think it's more about, what do you really expect from this?
Yeah.
And then when it comes to influencer marketing, that's when education comes in. Like, representation is important for your brand.
Mm-hmm. How do they
And
want to connect to their customers?
exactly. And there are so many different ways. So I think that's what's the great thing about my job, is that it's always a different challenge.
Yeah, exactly, which is great. What's next for you then? What's next on the horizon for Social Playground here in the UK?
Well, we're looking to expand the team. We have an office in central London, and so far it's been great. We have some amazing clients that we're working with. We're just looking, to work with more clients who like to think outside the box, and who want to go after their competition in a new and exciting way.
Mm.
Because what we don't want to do is just be posting the same type of content for
Yeah.
everyone.
I mean, I feel like you would get bored of that as well
And
as an
Instagram
agency
would be
owner.
boring then,
Yeah, it would
We do
be
want to see innovation.
exactly. I want to see disruption. I want to see difference.
Exactly.
I want to see
Disruption is such a good word.
yeah, it's one of the best words in the
It's
world
such a
because
buzzword right now
it
as
is such a
well.
buzzword. It is, but it's also something for me when you see something and you just feel that it's different. You're like, that is disruptive. That is someone that is,
Exactly.
and you also know from sort of the insider knowledge that you have and the little bit of knowledge that I have, you also know that that little bit of disruption probably took a long time to come out. It was probably
Yeah.
very much sort of pre-approved, all these other things. It wasn't sort of like someone just wakes up and goes, I'm going to do something disruptive. It's
Yeah.
even that is planned, which is always interesting for me.
Yeah.
One of my next questions for you is, you're obviously really passionate about sort of social media, you're passionate about diversity, you're passionate about sort of women in business. For you as a person, rather than you as just a founder, how are you position yourself in the sort of industry to help move things forward, to help create that change? Or if you're not, or do you plan to?
So I think conversations like these are important. I think educating your clients are important, and I think basically just getting behind creators and putting them to the forefront are important. Um, I also think it's about really conversation, like and listening as well. I do
Yeah.
think so because, with Black Lives Matter, we've seen an account that started that I can't think of the name right now, but it's basically influencers were invited to post their experiences with brands, and white influencers versus anyone else really on the spectrum had vastly different
Wow.
experiences with brands. And that was, I think, a wake up call for me personally on my personal account, just scrolling one day, happening upon this account. And I was thinking, this is how you need to change. You need to talk with your influencers and you need
Yeah.
to make sure you're not treating them differently as well. Like if there is a budget, the budget needs to be the same. You cannot,
It's
pay
almost like
less for the
speaking the
same.
unspoken, isn't it? Because
Exactly. And
conversations like that wouldn't happen in the meeting room or things like this. It's only after the fact that perhaps different people are going to think, oh, actually, I experienced a very different event than you did.
exactly. It's not something that is spoken. I think, especially, the wages for influencers is still a taboo topic
Hmm.
when it comes to agencies and also when it comes to them amongst themselves. So just having these discussions and not being afraid to speak up, I think, is what's going to propel things forward.
Do you
And
think
yeah, I
it's going to
mean,
become more regulated?
I hope so, because we've been seeing a lot of different numbers when it comes to influencers quoting us for a certain project. And it really varies so much
Yeah.
that there should be something that's kind of like a level playing field. Whether it's based on engagement, whether it's based on your reach, there should be something that's kind of just like an even playing field for everyone.
I assume it also has to be somewhere for the social influence to go to before they get sort of big, to educate themselves in proper procedures, how things should be done, because I'm sure there's a number of sort of accounts and people that have almost fallen into the fame, fallen into the
Yeah,
following
yeah,
count, and then they start getting these offers, and perhaps they don't really know what is right or what is wrong, what
exactly.
they should be doing, what they shouldn't be doing, what they should maybe be fighting for more in their corner. I can definitely foresee that sort of some of these big brands probably take huge advantage of these
They
accounts.
do, they do. And especially when it comes to gifting campaigns, some big brands still expect influencers to do the work for free for a product that, it doesn't, I mean, yeah, it's a big brand,
Hmm.
but, other than that. And I think that's when it's the agency's responsibility to educate their influencers.
Yeah,
And it's something that we pride ourselves on doing,
you
with
need to
our
do like
network of
influencer boot
influencers.
camps.
You do, and you also need to make sure that they understand what the law is in your country,
Mm,
because they can get in trouble for doing something very trivial, just not
yeah,
putting an ad marker on their post. But
yeah.
that's
You still see
you.
some of the big influencers now, some of the ones that I follow, when it's a blatant ad, they've
Oh
blatantly
yeah,
been paid for it, and they don't put
yeah,
the hashtag ad, they don't put paid partnership with XYZ,
yeah.
and I always look at that and I just go, are they completely oblivious to the fact that they need to do that,
I doubt it.
or do they have sort of the ego coming in thinking I don't need to do that? It's an interesting world.
Well, they might get a little letter for HMRC because there are rules for this,
Yeah.
especially in the UK. They are cracking down on this, and I think it's not necessarily their only responsibility. The brands also need to make sure that it's advertised properly,
Hmm.
especially when they're paying for that exposure.
Yeah.
Transparency is just needs to be on the table, and it needs to be a conversation.
I completely agree. Listen, I think this conversation has been fantastic. I think we could probably talk about this for probably 2-3 hours,
Exactly.
which would I would absolutely love. Maybe in season 2 we can do that because that's sort of the format I
Yeah.
want to go for. But one of my final questions is how can people find out more about you? How can people find out more about social platform, playground, sorry, and the amazing work that you're doing?
Well, I mean, I think the easiest way is to go follow Social Playground UK on Instagram or check out socialplayground.co.uk. Just shoot us a DM if you have any questions, whether you're an influencer or a brand, how to ethically work with influencers, how to have a more diverse campaign, or if you like totally clueless to the game, give us a ring. Come have a cuppa with us at the office. We're more than happy. It's no strings attached. Have a chat. We like to do that. I think it's important for everyone in the social media game to educate.
Fantastic. I think it's so clear that you really do care and you're building a business on that ethics, like you said, which is the completely right way to do it. And I think in the crazy world of social media and marketing, it's those that build it on those values that are going to be here for a long time. So congratulations on that. And I look
Thanks,
forward
Stephen.
to seeing the growth of Social Playground
Well,
moving
thanks,
forward.
Stephen. I'll come back on season 2 when we have
Exactly.
like,
We'll have
3 worldwide
season 2. We
offices.
can have a proper sit down in a meeting room, boardroom type setup, and
Yeah.
just have a good old chat, which would be fantastic.
We actually have a recording studio from
Boom.
at our office. So, yeah,
There we go.
you're
Sorted.
invited.
Thank you so much. Listen, thank you so much for coming on Founders
Thank you so
365.
much.
I've really enjoyed it. And thanks everyone for listening and watching. Like I said, this has been Founders 365.
Thanks, Stephen.